Hello, I'm Scruffy, and today I'm going to give you a literal new perspective on Pikmin 2, a first-person perspective. Before I do, I want to explain how I got the idea and detail how I set up modifications to the game. It started with the concept of Anaglyph 3D. Anaglyph is an illusion in which an image contains two filtered colored layers, in this case red and cyan, that reach the eyes independently when one wears anaglyph glasses, which have color-filtered lenses. Rather than perceive these slightly diverging images as separate, the visual cortex of the brain perceives these as one image, with depth beyond the flat plane of the image. You'll need 3D anaglyph glasses to perceive this image as 3D, but fortunately, they're inexpensive. It may not convey all the color information of an image, which is one reason movie theaters tend to use other forms of stereoscopic 3D today, but Anaglyph 3D has trekked through the 20th century and still thrives in the 21st, partly because it doesn't cost much to produce the effect or the glasses. I recently acquired a pair of nifty red cyan glasses, and I've been looking into the history of 3D in 3D ever since. Video games have had instances of anaglyph functionality since the 1980s, but more often video games that offer 3D use polarizing filters, auto-stereoscopy in the case of the Nintendo 3DS, and virtual reality headsets. Even the Nintendo GameCube had 3D functionality planned to work with a particular type of liquid crystal display, but that display would have been too expensive to market with the console. But we can get some taste of GameCube games in 3D using Dolphin, the GameCube and Wii emulator, to render games in Anaglyph 3D. I tried, what else, Pikmin in Anaglyph 3D, and it worked very well. From what I can tell, Dolphin creates this image using two different cameras, so that objects further in the distance diverge further in the two layers. So yeah, 3D Anaglyph Pikmin is an enjoyable new perspective. But only if you have the glasses. I figured I can do better than that. I want to give you a Pikmin view that you can perceive with the naked eye. So I'll show you how I manipulated the in-game camera parameters, percameters, to create Pikmin 2 in first person. Keep in mind this applies to the GameCube version of Pikmin 2 emulated on Dolphin. I don't know if it works in the new Play Control version of Pikmin 2. Now, in the game's files, in the folder User, there is a user Nishimura who handled camera parameters in the eponymous folder Camera. This folder contains 6 parameter files, although from what I've seen so far, only the first 2 are used in-game. The other 4 contain strange descriptors like pull camera, shooting, and reel. Don't be fooled, the real parameters appear to be up here. And as you can see, they're separated into camera above ground and camera below ground. You actually do have slightly adjusted camera angles in caves, probably as the developers fine-tuned the visibility. I'll use the ground camera params text file as my example. In this file, you'll find 2 copies of the parameters for the cameras in the game. I don't know why, just edit the first copy, that's the one that makes a difference. This copy has all the parameters sorted by camera setting. There are 7 possible settings in the game: close, medium, and far zooms at a low angle, close, medium, and far zooms at a bird's eye angle, and an angle called zoom that centers behind the active leader when you hold the L button. I can turn any of these into a first-person view, so I'm just going to choose far zoom low angle, which means all the parameter IDs will have the letters FL in them. There are 8 parameters at play here. Let's walk through them. CFLD is the distance from the leader. Normally the far camera is 900 units from the active leader. But if we set it to 0, the camera will be right in the center of Olimar, not in front of him. So we actually have to set this value to a negative number. I've found negative 12 to work out well enough. Thankfully, this camera is not always set to point at Olimar. Next is CFLA, the angle of the camera's position above the horizontal. For the far low camera, this is normally 25 degrees. Let's set this to 0 degrees so our camera is looking forward, not down. In conjunction with this is the parameter CFLO, the camera's offset. This value moves the camera above the position set by the last 2 parameters, just for fine adjustments. This is 40 units originally. I've found 20 units to be a good offset in this edit. Since my camera is 0 degrees above the horizontal, this value will keep it from intersecting with the ground. Okay, next is a fun value. CFLF, the FOV. or the field of view. Field of view is the amount of the environment that the camera can see at once, measured as an angle arching out from the center of the camera. The fields of view in Pikmin 2 are really small. The far low camera can only peer out into 26 degrees of this 360-degree environment. This is sort of the equivalent of a camera that is very far away and very zoomed in. The effect is especially noticeable in the near-low camera setting. In a first-person perspective, we'd want the field of view to be wider, but how much wider? For Pikmin 2's size and resolution, I've estimated something around 60 or 65 degrees will balance visibility and giving you a nice encompassing view. But just for fun, I want to quickly show you that the game can handle a field of view of 180 degrees, half the map at once. In order to compensate for the screen size, the center of the view appears compressed, and at an extreme like 180 degrees, the whole view gets compressed into a single point. What you're seeing here is still the same distance from Olimar, but we're trying to press this whole hemispherical 3D field into a flat picture from a camera, and capturing it all on a 4:3 aspect ratio screen, you can expect some visual information to be lost. Anyway, 65 degrees ought to be fine for our purposes. Let's try it out. It's in the position we want, but could definitely use some improvements. For one, Olimar outruns the camera because the camera has a curve to its velocity. Also, the camera's angle moves to account for the objects it thinks are obstructing Olimar from view. This is the camera's collision sensor, which is fortunately also stored in the parameter file. And finally, rotating the camera isn't really fast enough for our purposes. So, we have our three problems. Let's solve them by changing the values that apply to all camera angles. CPMD will solve the first issue. This parameter controls the speed at which the camera changes its settings. Let's change it from 0.1 to 1. You'll notice that not only does this mean the camera more rigidly follows Olimar, it also changes angles instantaneously. But that's not an issue. To fix our second problem, we have to turn off camera collision. CLCR is camera collision radius, and I'm setting it from 300 to 0. Just to be safe, I'm also setting CLMS, CLMH, and CLNH to 0. These values also affect collision, so they can be turned off. This means that the camera can now move unobstructed. It will be able to slightly clip into some walls if you get close enough, but that's okay. That would happen if the camera still had collision. These collision parameters are meant to detect if something is in the camera's line of sight with Olimar, not to give the camera physical collision with other objects. To solve the third issue, we need to understand how the camera rotation with the L button works. If you press the button down, the camera rotates to point toward your cursor. I'll call this State 1. If you hold L down for at least 0.6 seconds, the camera switches to State 2, following the cursor wherever it goes, allowing you to constantly shift your view to look ahead. The only difference between State 1 and State 2 is the rate and acceleration of camera rotation. Changing the system to work in first-person mode is a matter of trial and error using the following values. CMMT is rotational speed during State 1. This value is 0.15, kind of ambiguous. CMFT is the time spent in State 1 before going to State 2, normally 0.6 seconds. All in State 2, CMTA is acceleration at 0.005, CMTM is rotation speed at 0.9, and CMTB is the decay in State 2 after the L button is released, at 0.85. State 1 and State 2 are not on the same scale, so again, editing these values is about trial and error. I've come up with these values that work pretty well in first person, at least as well as they can function given Pikmin 2's camera controls. Two more tiny details to address. FLDT is important. It's not an easy parameter to notice, but the more Pikmin you have in your army, the more the camera moves away from the leader to try and center all the Pikmin on screen. We want the camera to stay centered in front of the leader, so we'll change this value from 130 down to 0. And finally, FLNC and FLFC are the short and far draw distances for this camera angle. That means that before 1 unit and after 2,800 units of distance from the camera, no objects are drawn. They still exist, but they aren't rendered so they can save space. But as far as I've experimented, we can increase the far draw distance value by even 1,000 units, and still have the game function fine. That way we can see all of the background all the time. And with that, we have Pikmin 2 in a robust first-person mode. Certainly a new way of looking at Pikmin gameplay. It's playable for sure, but tall enemies and airborne enemies are rather difficult to engage because of this camera's limited height. Plus, the whistle comes from the leader's beacon, so it appears right in your face whenever you whistle Pikmin. These are both issues that can be fixed with more editing to make a more complete first-person mode. You know, more camera angles could be changed to include a camera that looks up, helping with higher targets. And the texture that creates the whistle effect could be made more transparent so it's not so jarring. Enemies could be adjusted so their health wheels are visible at this height, and they stay more active when off the camera. You can see where I'm going with this. I'm gonna make the full game compatible with first-person camera, and then hopefully at some point I'll stream a playthrough here. It's a fresh perspective for Pikmin 2 that adds visual depth to the environment and really makes you feel small. I do hope this video has shown you how much care the developers put into tweaking the camera for optimal visibility and spatialization, but I'm also looking forward to streaming the game in this new, modified view. And that wraps up my video. I'm Scruffy, and thank you very much for watching.